Welcome one, welcome all, welcome to another exciting episode of Tales of Citizens right here on the Sound Strategy Network in association with Unrepentant Gaming and Legacy Gaming. I am your host, Bridger, and we are here to talk about Star Citizen. We ask the deep questions, among which is, have you read The Lost Generation? We're going to find out tonight. It's an in-fiction story about a Star Citizen character who is very reminiscent of another pop culture icon. We'll let you guess who. But before we go there, let me introduce my co-hosts. To my left, we have... Wait, left on my screen or left on your...
This has never been clarified in all of these episodes.
Calathulu.
This is Calathulu.
From Unrepentant Gaming. Welcome, sir.
Well, it worries me that you don't know your left from your right, and no, I have not at all read A Cautionary Tale, The Lost Generation. No, I'm kidding. We're ready to go.
Okay, well then, we will go right over to our good friend Gray, who is to my other somewhere.
Other left.
Yeah.
That was a good awkward silence for just a second there.
That was the point. Yeah.
I appreciate that.
It's called comedy timing, people. This is how it's done.
These are the jokes.
Anthony wants to know if I'm using Sennheisers. Yes, this is Sennheiser PC360s, but they're not 363Ds. I've never even known that it came with a 3D. Somebody tell me. I need 3Ds, apparently. So, I'm glad you guys got a hold of the program, however you may have found it. Tell a friend or two, won't you? We are, like I said, the Star Citizen Podcast, asking the deep questions, and today we've got a great show for you. We've got a number of things, including, like I said, that story, the in-fiction story, the Lost Generation. But we also have some other great stuff for you. You can check out our website, talesofcitizens.com. We do record live every other Sunday right here on Twitch and YouTube, and the links for that are usually found on talesofcitizens.com, and the feedback email is feedback@talesofcitizens.com. Let's go to our main section, Life in the Verse. First, let's ask you, Callie, what have you been up to lately?
More Cities Skylines than I care to admit to. And Heroes of the Storm, at Gray's recommendation. I've been having a ton of fun with that, and the brokenness of all of it. And
Yes.
Especially, I love the fact that Blizzard managed to work in the Lost Vikings. The only thing I need them to put in there now is Rock and Roll Racing. If we could get, I don't know, the soundtrack from that for at least one of the maps, and if you've not played it, go find it, get an emulator for Super Nintendo, and check it out. It was Blizzard's first title. The first title, literally this cheesy sci-fi racing game where you spend most of the match trying to blow each other up. It was perfect.
Okay, I actually have also started playing Heroes of the Storm recently at Gray's recommendation, and it's fun when I win, which is probably what you could say about pretty much any game of the MOBA variety.
I can say you now play a reasonable Tychus. Previously, you were awful, but you're good now. It's fine.
Well, no, you gotta find the right character, right? I mean, it's just like in League of
Yeah.
Legends, whenever I play a squishy character and I'm not really paying attention and I just go back into default mode, I always play like a tanky initiator, and that doesn't really work when you're playing as like an AD carry, like a Vayne. I'm just like, don't worry guys, I got this. Whoa, how did Blitzcrank glad me? What happened?
Oh, you got him all right. You got him.
You got it.
I got this.
See, but that's true. I suck at League of Legends completely, but with Nasus, I will sit down and I've gotten like a 30 kill, 1 death match, and it's just ridiculous. So I don't know.
Everybody's got their default thing that they really want to do. Like some people are really good at kiting, and that's what they do by default. And I am not those people.
No.
I actually really enjoy playing AP carries and junglers specifically in League of Legends. AP used to be my main thing. I've switched a little more toward jungle. Heroes, I am loving the tanks. Anubarak and all this sustain and the ability at level 1 to be like every time you pick up a health globe, you get
mana.
You get towards 4 more health regen per second.
Yeah, those are really interesting abilities.
I mean,
I have to say
their regen compared to League is way over the top. You can have a ridiculous amount of per second health.
It absolutely is.
I almost never go back even if I'm doing poorly, because you have those fountains right there usually when you're in the laning phase to help keep you in the lane and everything.
The sippy cups.
The sippy cups. I'm sorry. My bad.
Yes.
But
everyone loves sippy cups.
One thing I will absolutely give Blizzard tons of credit for making their own game in the MOBA concept instead of just copying League of Legends. All those other ones that are out there, What's the DC Universe one that's coming out right now? It starts with an
no
I.
idea.
Marvel Heroes or something was
There's
out
a
there
Marvel
for a while,
one, but I can't remember right now. But there's a DC one. EA made their own version, which I think shut down already. I can't remember, but they
I never
all
heard of
just really copied League of Legends. There's already League and there's already Dota. You're just not going to have another competitor fit in there unless you do things very differently. Blizzard
it was like
did things
Heroes
very
of
differently.
Newark or something.
Oh, Heroes of
HON.
Newerth, that was way before League. That was way
Yeah.
before Dota 2 as well. It was the oldest
Yeah,
one.
that
It was
was-
also the one that stayed truest to the original Dota and failed for that
did.
reason, I would argue.
Yeah.
I mean, really, it was just trying to take the original Dota game and put it into its own
Infinite
engine.
Crisis. Infinite
Yep.
Crisis is the DC universe one,
Wow.
which,
Yep.
has some
I think-
interesting characters to draw from.
It says a lot that none of us know it, really.
Yes. Yes, it does. Okay, so
A
anyway,
little bit.
back to Star Citizen. How about that?
Mm.
How about we talk about
That
Star
game,
Citizen?
right.
So, what have you been doing recently, Gray?
Well, first and foremost, I kind of have to plug the Legacy Instructional Series. Been put together by our good man Vin.
Also known
He
as
is
White
incredible.
Snake.
Yep, he goes by White Snake. You've probably seen him on that a lot more. He put together some really amazing stuff. You can find it on the RSI forums, or you can find it on what do you call it? Reddit. There we go.
That small.
Either
site.
way, yeah, that's a difficult word there, isn't it? He's got a really great system of guides for new players, and if you're just looking to improve your skills or you're brand new to the game, this is a really good place to start. I would suggest anybody take a quick look. It's all public, it's all there, and I think our website, yes, there we go. Our links on our website are no longer broken, so this actually works out pretty well.
Yeah,
We had a little trouble with that last week.
Although
Here
be
he's
fair,
doing an exercise he calls station weaving, which I think other people have done in the past as well, where you try to start at 25% thrust and make your way through the gaps in these stations, and you slowly speed yourself up and try to go faster and faster without completely crashing.
And
I'd also
which-
like to note, for anybody who's curious about what ComStab looks like on and off, what it does to your speed, what it does to your turning, this station weaving video is a great place to see it in action in really tight spaces.
Yes.
It's a really great way to see, particularly with how clever Vin is about talking you through it, where things slow down, where you have to brake, how tight you can make a turn, and then you can watch Vin smash into the beam at the end of the video. Spoilers.
Yeah,
And it's great.
we don't want to ruin that. That's the best part.
Though I think he made this just because he was tired of answering my questions. I'll be blunt.
It's possible. No, Vin loves teaching. He is very, very good at it. He
Yeah.
runs our in-house stuff here in Legacy. But at the same time, he likes just helping the community. And if you have questions, I would encourage anybody who's new to the game to approach him. He can really, really help out your game.
There's a link to that series that you can find on the Robert Space Industries forum. There's a link directly on our show notes, which you can find either, if you're watching this on the YouTube, they should be down in the description, but they're also on the website, talesofcitizens.com. You can click right at the top. It shows show notes, and you can find this one, episode number 25. Okay. What else you been up to, Greg?
Yep. Actually, the other thing I've been up to, besides Heroes of the Storm, which has been entertaining, is actually working with my X55 throttle, specifically. I found a couple of control surfaces on this bad boy that have done a lot to improve my gaming. Particularly, there are two wheels. Bridger, do you have that image from our website that I posted? It should be in that topic there.
Yeah, I should be able to find it. 1 second.
Sorry, we didn't pre-prepare this thing.
Well, I mean, our
The
pregame
throttle
is
has
all-
a couple of wheels and a small mouse nub on it. And what I've been working on is actually turning those into viable control surfaces while in flight. They're all thumb controlled, and it gives you something to strafe around with a little bit more, or control your gimbals specifically while using HOTAS. Particularly what I've been doing here is the two wheels, which are the image that I circled around. Bridger will find. There we go. Those two wheels on the X55 that I've circled have a stopping point right near the center of the wheel. The important thing means that means you have a negative and you have a positive direction with a whole lot of give on both sides. That means you have two small throttles on your throttle. These can be used while coupled or decoupled. And what that lets me do is put on a variable small amount of thrust, either in left or right, or in up and down, in addition to the usual forward and back I get on the throttle. So instead of having to hit the little wheels, or the little, what do you call them? The little nubs right below those wheels, which give me 100. The hats, there we go. Yeah. That give me 100% strafe in any given direction. I can use this wheel and get an easy 10% and move 10 meters per second to my left or right and very precisely position myself, or land softly in manual mode without any problem at all.
Yes. Cool.
Tacking this on to the commands to turn off all of your power, this means you can get right in on an asteroid, shut everything off so you have no signature, and wait for somebody to show up in front of you. Hit all the buttons, turn it all back on, and blow them out of the sky. They never even see you there until you light up.
Actually, while I was looking for this, I saw another link on the Legacy gaming forums, which you can go to legacygg.com if you're interested. Wildstorm, one of our Team Legacy members, posted a little tiny fact that was hidden in the March update that not a lot of people noticed. They mentioned that not only are they redoing the visual damage system, but they're redoing how items actually damage each other. For example, right now, like beam weapons and ballistic weapons just do damage based on a number in a file somewhere. If this hits you and you're this far away, it does this much damage. Now they're changing. Let me read the 1.1 saw the premiere of a new damage system in the Gladius. We are now in the process of improving that system and bringing it across the other ships in the game. We are not stopping there, however. Our engineering team is currently in the process of updating the actual system by which we apply damage and moving to a physically based system for application of damage. What this means is that rather than each projectile having a pre-described damage value against shields, hull plating, or components, we are actually going to base the damage off of mass, velocity, and density of the projectile. Likewise, on the ships, we will be expanding the materials and the properties of their hull plating and shields to react in a proper way to the physical characteristics of the rounds impacting them. This is a very exciting change, one we're hoping to be releasing in the near soon TM. Unquote. Now that sounds like an awful lot of extra processing, but I know that other games have done this.
Yeah.
But have they done it on this scale before?
Well, think about the scale for a second. So World of Tanks, for example, has something very similar, where it hits and even takes the deflection value of like the angle of your armor and how it hits on that plate and whatnot. So the scale is going to be the instancing system. So you've got 32 ships that they've been talking about. So I don't think it's going to be too bad, actually. It won't be too much bigger than a single match of World of Tanks at any given time. Maybe double the size compared to what they've got, but I don't see a real problem as far as breaking or pushing a boundary that's not been tested already.
Yeah, it's I mean, this certainly sounds like a much more interesting and immersive system, just like they're trying to go with everywhere else. I mean, they said, we're not just going to say the ship goes left when you move it left. We're going to physically model the thrusters to allow for emergent things to happen, and this is just another aspect of that. I mean, there's just a ton of small things that can be added without being added. Like if you add the systems and they make logical, consistent sense within themselves, it adds more things to it. Now, the other thing that I will point out, and this is also on the Legacy forums that I thought was really cool. Have you guys seen this TIE Fighter short film somebody put together?
Oh my God!
It's hand animated. It's gorgeous. It's amazing. Just look at some of this. And then he's got a music track that goes along with it, but it's this like 7-minute little battle between the Empire and the Rebels, and I'm not going to really show the whole thing here, obviously, but it's super cool, and it's all hand animated, and it's super well done, like any real animation studio would do. It's just one guy in his spare time. It was great.
There was one point I wanted to make quickly about the actual modeling of the projectiles, angling, all that kind of thing. It's that what you saw in World of Tanks, and the reason that this is important, is that it's a nerf to ballistic weapons.
Yes.
Outright. It means that they have to basically say, if you're firing a ballistic weapon, the impact will do this much damage at this particular angle. Right now, if you fire at somebody, it's very possible you only glance their armor. You barely tap the edge of that 350R's armor plate. It does full damage.
Hmm.
There isn't a range. There isn't a damage roll. There's no maybe this penetrated, maybe it doesn't. It did this do enough damage? When you're talking about a full physics-based system like you see in World of Tanks, which they can very, very easily handle, it's actually worth noting they have machine guns that fire in World of Tanks many, many rounds per second. And they're modeling every one of those bullets and saying this one ricochets, this one doesn't, this one penetrates based on how it hits. When you're looking at Star Citizen, now you're going to be saying, well, I'm going to try to cockpit shot this guy with a bullet. Well, congratulations, you hit sloped armor, you're not getting in. Your bullet's going to go ricocheting off somewhere else. This means all the people that are running around right now with ballistic guns that hit, and it goes through the shield and it immediately blows up a component, are going to have to now contest with the angle of the armor.
Well,
as opposed to a laser weapon, which by the look of it, will simply hit the armor and dissipate across it as heat and damage, rather than ricochet.
Which means it's basically
mirrored
going to
armor.
do more consistent damage regardless of the angle. So
But
what
there
the
might be-
lasers would do.
There may be coatings or treatments for armor to stop laser weapons, but my question is the Sledge series of weapons ballistic or energy?
It's
I can't
ballistic.
recall.
It's a
Ballistic.
mass driver.
And now we know why it did so goddamn much damage.
There's a pre-buff. There's
It's
pre-buff
very
for the
possible.
system.
When we saw this news, the first thing I thought was maybe this is why ballistic weapons haven't gotten the nerf back.
Yeah.
It's very possible what we're seeing right now is, ballistics are going to have a lot of bullets they can fire very quickly, and they'll have good damage, and they'll use a low amount of power. And you know what? They're going to penetrate only in an angle about yay big.
Yep. Which is why you put 1,000 rounds out there and hope that the volume catches somebody.
Yeah.
But
Because
also-
if somebody turns their hull, turns their hull,
Yes.
they might mitigate the entire damage output of what you're doing. And you know what? That's how it should be.
Yes.
That's
And it makes-
why the ship should have
That's why
sloped
the
armor in the
ships
first
are
place.
aerodynamic for space, right? Because that way, when you're facing them head on, if they're all pointy,
Yes.
it bounces things off. Yeah, that's it.
No Borg cubes. And it makes capital ship engagements more interesting, I think, in the long run.
Broadside.
Because you broadside, but as soon as you fire, you turn because you don't want their broadside catching you the same
No,
way.
of course not. So now, here's my thought. If Chris Roberts was making World in Tanks, he would also model that bullet ricochet up into the air and drop back down directly on the head of some other guy who's got his tank hatch open and is observing the battle from far away, and he would die, and they would have no idea how.
I would like to point out, as much as I often malign wargaming because they're greedy, angry people,
Gaijin 2.
they have
Sorry, what?
done a brilliant job with their new engine for World of Tanks that's been implemented.
Have you
Uh,
seen World
it's-
Warships?
No, World of Tanks.
Okay,
They
alright.
changed
Well,
the
isn't
engine
the
they were running on to
engine-
something, the Havoc engine or whatever it is now.
Okay, all right.
It allows you to do things like that. I've seen situations
Wow.
where people hit a tank, ricocheted a shot,
Right.
and blew up another tank in their weekly highlights.
You get the round
They've
the
done
corner
a
shots.
really good job, and they've been really good now about saying, well, now we want to take our tanks and we want to make them high fidelity because it's this new engine. We could import the old models, which we did, but now we'd like to fix them and bring new ones in. And the difference is night and day.
Oh, yes.
They are beautiful vehicles, and the modeling is so much better when you take a shot at them.
You know, that actually reminds me of... Let me see if I can find it. There was back when I was doing Tales of Heroes, which is a Company of Heroes video podcast.
Many moons
Did
ago.
I ever, I thought I put not that kind of thing. There was just our example of when you implement these systems right and that they're all internally consistent, you can have things happen that you didn't plan on happening. There was a moment in one of our early episodes of Tales of Heroes. Let me see. Maybe it was under Best of. I feel like I found these moments and I put them together. Nope, can't find it. It's somewhere in one of our early things where there's this huge, most important tank battle in the middle of the map, and the Tiger tank that has been taking all these shots from all the allies is finally on its last legs. It's slowly trying to limp out of the way, and a reinforcement, a Stug 3 comes up to try and help, and it shoots just as the Tiger is backing through its line of fire, and it hits the Tiger in the rear armor and blows up his own Tiger. And we just went crazy because it was like this climactic, ultimate moment where the Tiger had just finished devastating the entire center of the town. Nothing could kill it. It was just barely getting back to be repaired, and finally reinforcements come up, and they're the ones that take it down. But that's because the system was designed to physically model these things moving through space, and if something gets in the way, that's what gets hit. And that's the kind of benefit you can have. Even if you can't state it outright, when you see them happen, you go, that's why we implemented it that way. All right. So, have you guys, you guys, but probably not an awful lot of the listeners have noticed, or maybe they have if they've been watching the Reddit, there was a really interesting article on TheWired.com recently. Fans have dropped $77 million on this guy's buggy, half-built game.
Sure.
Dat clickbait title. Thank you, Wired.com. That image is awesome. Look at that.
It is. I want to say, for reference, if you want to link to something like this and you don't want to give them the ad revenue, and I'm not saying you should or shouldn't, this is just a thing.
Internet
you can
Archive.
use archive.org, and that'll do it. That'll take care of it. Problem solved. Don't have to worry about it. People you don't want getting the ad money for clickbait titles won't get any ad money for clickbait titles.
Yeah. Because a lot of times people like linking to clickbait stuff because it's outrageous and they want to vent about how bad it is, but you don't have the option to do that without giving them money from all the shares. But what you're describing, Internet Archive, I think there's another website, don't link to that or something like that, somebody pointed out, that does exactly the same thing. A lot of people will just take an image of the offending material so that they don't give the website any more links. Anyway, this one, in fact, if you read through it, is fairly even, and it's not necessarily pro Star Citizen, but it's fair. I would say it's fair. Would you describe it as fair?
I would call it fair. From an outsider's perspective coming in, particularly somebody who is trying to be journalistically thorough, this struck me as a relatively good piece. For those of you who don't know my background, I actually was a journalist and a writer for a number of years. I was not a gaming journalist, please don't hang me. But I spent many years with newspapers around the country. This kind of article strikes me as somebody who is trying to give it an even hand. It's true, there is a lot that's unproven. And as Bridger was quoted in the article near the bottom, we're all insane. That's okay. But at the same time, there was the fellow who made the Imagine trailer. I'm sorry if I've forgotten your name. You did amazing work, man, wherever you're at. He did a thing called an article that was the human angle or the human aspect, talking about why Star Citizen was sure to, in some way or another, succeed.
I did read that, yep.
So, what you're looking at with this is somebody who is trying to say, let's examine the piece. Let's take a look at Star Citizen and say, how are they spending their money that we can see? How much have they produced? And they did a relatively decent job of talking about what had been produced, even if they kind of... I didn't really catch a lot about Squadron 42 in there. It didn't seem to be focused quite as much as I might have liked, but that could have been edited out for time. It's a very long article. I think it was well done. Now, I think it was poorly highlighted in their print magazine.
Yeah. That,
really,
I don't have any,
really poorly highlighted.
I don't have the link to that's on the Reddit somewhere. Somebody found basically showed all the boxes that are on the outside that have quotes and things, and they're all really clickbaity. Like, they just tell you half the story with no context to make it sound outrageous, and basically they made it look like if you didn't read the article, just looking at that article and passing through, you'd come away with the idea that this guy is scamming everybody because of the way that they presented everything.
Yes. If you read the article, you would not think it was a scam. If you read the article, you would be interested probably enough to go check out the website, which I think would be evidenced by the fact we have seen some new citizens lately popping up. I would bet some came from Wired. I can't say it for sure, but I would bet some did. Now, as Tim, our Tim from this show, who goes by Gorilla Astronomer on Reddit, posted, he had a great explanation I suggest you guys check out about the editorial process. and how the writer put together this beautiful piece of work. For what it is a great
was well
start,
researched. It
article.
was very well researched. They quoted our show.
Yeah.
Like, our show isn't important, but somehow he got a hold of our show. He listened to it through a good chunk of it, at least, because I didn't make that comment at the beginning.
He listened. I was checking through. He listened to at least 2 full shows in order to write that article, which is saying something. We talk a lot.
That is more dedication than I have to this show. I'm impressed.
I don't even listen to the show. You sleep through it.
I had to go back and rewatch
suddenly...
it to see when we actually said that. It was... Now, when we actually got through that, that's great. But all of the stuff surrounding the story was really, really poorly done. And it wasn't the writer who did it. Please don't hang him, guys. That's something that would be put together by a combination of the editorial team and the graphics department. And I know somebody in production is going to want to hang me for this too. But a lot of the time what ends up happening is your production department says, we have this amount of space that we want to deal with. This is what our feature area wants to look like now that we've sort of mocked it up. And the writer often has some control over the graphics if they are in a position in a publication where they are providing them. I don't think that was the case here. To me, what this looks like is they took a whole lot of graphics from CIG's website. They stuck them with price tags and with zippy things which really don't fit the rest of the story's tone.
Right.
And then they put it over a centerfold to try to make this look like something people should read and be angry about, rather than read and say, holy crap, look what these guys are doing with technology. And look at these hundreds of thousands of people crowdfunding this game for millions of dollars because they believe that this technology and this game is a good idea.
They don't talk about the dedication. They make it sound like they're ripping people off through some kind of scam.
And to be fair, it is the headlines and the graphics that do that, not the story. The story is very good at actually showing you that angle. And again, my condolences to that author for them sort of butchering the area around his story. It was very well written, and we do appreciate the free press.
Certainly. Now, that when you said, they design it specifically to make you angry, that reminds me of a recent video. I don't know if you guys watch a YouTuber called CGP Grey. He puts together a bunch of videos. I think I probably mentioned him in the past.
Is that gray-headed gamer?
No, CGP Grey does a bunch of videos where he does animations. One of his most famous ones was explaining the United Kingdom and all of the different pieces of the United Kingdom. He's just done one recently on Scandinavia. But what he did was he explained the original definition of the word meme, which is coined by Richard Dawkins, and it was designed to be a version of a gene which is a biological, physical, chemical thing that attempts to keep itself reproducing over time, right? A gene that's worthwhile, that is fittest, will keep producing. But a meme is an idea, which could be anything from a joke to a piece of technological concept to even just a story or a narrative that would propagate itself. So if I told you a joke and it was really funny, you would tell it to 2 other people, and they would think it's funny, and they'd tell it to 2 other people. So a joke, for example, is more fit to survive in the human society environment if it keeps propagating itself, right? But if it's a stinker, it'll just land and nobody will share it. Well, one of the pieces of data that he discussed in there was that there are certain things that people are more likely to share. The number 1 is something that causes outrage. If it causes outrage in you, you are more likely to share it than any other emotion that generates.
It's funny you should mention that. One of the papers that I worked for had a box in the lower right corner of the front page that every time we published was titled, "They said what?" And then it was a quote taken largely out of context from some story that we had written that week that was put there by the editors to make somebody go, whoa, I got to go read that story. What did they just say?
And then it was clickbait, yeah.
It was clickbait. It was clickbait before you had to click. It was print bait. So they would actually go to that page 7 or whatever the crap we had buried it at and read that story because we had found some outrageous quote from a local politician or business person that made people want to go read the story, even if it was only tangential.
So we're kind of getting off the reservation here, but I want to bring this back. So the rest of this video that CGP Grey did, it's called "This Video Will Make You Angry," and he was just, playing off of the clickbait title thing. But
Yes.
to bring it back, he uses this video to explain every internet argument and every internet position that you look at and go, how could people think that X is correct? Like, take any... Try not to bring politics into it, and he tries very hard to avoid talking about any specific issue, but you can bring it in anything. Anything where you look at some other group of people and you think to yourself, how can they possibly think that's right when it's clearly not? He discusses how if you have something that's outrageous a little bit, just a little bit angry, it's just unusual, but it's true. And then somebody tells that to somebody else, but with a little tiny twist that's slightly less true, but makes it a little bit more outrageous and more likely to spread. And somebody tells the true story to someone else. Well, that one that's slightly less true but more outrageous is going to be more likely to spread. And as it spreads, it will, of course, mutate because people will not tell the perfect exact copy of these stories to each other. And the ones that they twist to be slightly more outrageous, to be slightly more angering, did you hear about those? Insert political party here. They're trying to take away our insert thing here that you don't want to take them away. That's how you get those statements that are just so wrong, but they started with a kernel of truth and slowly evolved into a thing that is more likely to be spread like wildfire around a group, despite the fact that it's completely not factual anymore.
And then becomes a full piece of bullshit popcorn.
Yes, the truth doesn't go that fast. It doesn't spread that fast. Who was it, Yogi Berra, that said the lie makes it around the world while the truth is still putting its shoes on? That's exactly it. And that explains every Star Citizen argument you've ever seen. It explains every argument on the internet you've ever seen. It explains every argument in real life you've ever seen. That explains why all of that happens. It's such a cool video.
I want to point out, I'm outraged you expect me to follow that.
Okay, then.
But speaking of politics and things gone horribly wrong, I believe, Bridger, you have some words about EVE Online.
Yes. Oh, but first, I think Gray wanted to talk about this real quick. Let me pull it up on the screen here. We've got an army of Gladiuses.
This is actually... I just wanted to throw this one out there real quick. This is an image that was put up by Whitesnake from one of our little training sessions. Mm-hmm. And this is awesome.
It is.
Formation flight makes me so happy.
I want to be able to, in the final version, slave our controls to another pilot nearby so that we can do, formation flying in perfect, that would be so cool to make videos with that.
It can already match speed. The problem is matching exact vector.
Sure.
So you want to bring homeworld controls into Star Citizen. That's what I'm hearing here.
Yeah, but then again, of course, if we did do something like that, then it would we wouldn't be able to have the equivalent of the Blue Angels that do it all manually, right? It wouldn't be nearly as impressive.
No, it would not be.
All right, so that was all despite the fact that Calathulu's wonderful transition brought me to exactly where I wanted to be, but I wasn't ready for it yet. I didn't have my audio file open.
I'm famously subtle.
All right, so here's the thing. Famously subtle, that's it. Was it in the last show that somebody linked me to that EVE Online This Is EVE trailer, or I found it by myself? I can't remember, but I watched it and I couldn't help myself. I had to resubscribe. Here's the thing. I was reading through some of the changes that they were making to the sovereignty system. That's how their overall big meta game for who controls the various worlds. And just the biggest PvP alliance systems ever, and you've probably heard all about it. They're changing everything between the last patch and the one that's dropping in the summer. So I was reading this, trying to understand what was going on, and I got a little frustrated. And when I get frustrated, sometimes it comes out angry. When I get angry, I have to vent. And when I vent, it's called a Bridger rant. That's right, ladies and gentlemen. So here's the thing. It's a cautionary tale to CIG and Star Citizen. Because I'm reading these details, and I had 3 problems. 3 strikes, and you're out! The first strike, this is way too long. Take a look at this. This is an explanation of how the new system works and why they're changing it. I can keep scrolling. I'm not done yet. We're gonna keep scrolling. I'm gonna keep scrolling. I'm gonna keep.
Ooh, that was a nice little flowchart up there.
Scrolling. There's flowcharts. There's more flowcharts to help explain this. This is 6,000 words trying to explain these game mechanics. You know what? This is convoluted. The terminology sucks, but let's get back to it. Here's why. I can explain this to you in 2 minutes. You ready? Here it is. You've got 3 types of structures. Each can be captured. How do you capture them, you may ask? Well, the person who owns the structure sets a 4-hour window. This is when it's vulnerable. Why? Because it's a game and we can't always be there. We don't want people to cap in the middle of the night where we are, because it's a game that spans the world. It's one server. Why within the context of the game? They never explain that. There's no reason that this thing is invulnerable except in this 4-hour window, but that's the case. Okay, so you have a special module, you put it on your ship. You say, I'm capturing the thing. If the defenders have a module they put on their ship that says, I'm capturing the thing, capture stops. You have to kill each other, then capture can conclude. Once you've done that, it doesn't actually capture it. What it does is contest it. You've contested it, okay? Now, you just have to wait 24 hours, then another 24 hours until the next 4-hour window, and now it's up for capture. But this is how it works. You basically set, okay, we're contesting this object. 48 hours later, nodes start spawning all around the constellation that have to be secured. If you can secure the most of them the fastest, bam, it stays yours, or if you're the attacker, it joins to your side. So that's how you capture it. It's not that hard. There are some very detailed things that I'm leaving out that were in there, and it's fine. I'm not being perfectly legit, but that's how it works. Here's the thing. Their terminology couldn't be worse. They say, oh, by the way, so
that's
the
a
defender,
challenge.
The defender, oh, you're right, it's a challenge. The defender, when the attacker tries to capture something or contest it, their time that it takes is multiplied by how occupied that defender has been there. If they haven't even touched that system, they have nobody flying through that system, then there's no bonus. But if the defenders are actively using the system, they're mining there, they're hunting pirates, they're using it to trade and things, then the attackers have to take a longer time. What do they call this? They call this an occupancy indices. You've got the defensive indices, you've got the defensive index, the strategic index, and the military index, the occupancy indices. The number of times I read indices, who writes the word index in plural? Come on! Nobody does that. I guess the Icelandics do. Now,
Developers
I'm going to quote you on that.
Developers do.
I'm going to find an excuse.
Now, you know how I referred to the attackers trying to contest a structure before they actually go about capturing it? In the article, every time, I got so confused until I finally understood. They said the attackers are attempting to reinforce it and therefore make it invulnerable. Why would the attackers want to reinforce it? The defenders want to reinforce it. The attackers don't want to reinforce it. That makes no sense unless you already know how their EVE sovereignty currently works, because reinforcement was a mechanic that they use in the current system that's completely different in the new system, so give it a new name! And then you got Strike 3, okay? Strike 3. The mechanics make no sense within the fiction of the game. Why are they impossible to blow up? If you shoot at them, they take no damage. They're made of immortal substances, unless, of course, you go through this convoluted process of contesting them and then capturing these random nodes that spawn. How do these random nodes 2 systems away have anything to do with the space station in this system? No idea. Nothing to do with them at all within the fiction. At least as far as this article is concerned. Maybe they'll come up with a better one. But Star Citizen does that way better. They come up with in-fiction reasons for all the things that they do mechanically. And despite the fact that this system sounds like it will be amazing to actually play from a mechanical point of view, holy crap did it make me mad while I was writing it. CIG, please no. Please no. Read this and learn what not to do. Alright, I'm done. I'm done.
I want to point out, I have read documents like that. I know exactly why it was worded that way. It's a developer's blog.
I know it's a developer's blog. But you're writing to the public.
The guy who sat there and actually speaks English the way a human does, i.e. his boss, had no say in that, did not proofread it, and didn't give it the go-ahead. He didn't say, holy shit, no. like he should have. So I'm going to say it's a failure of management.
Yeah,
Although-
I know that's probably the case, but I like to get angry about things, even
Oh,
though
no,
they're
no.
not
Get
necessarily
angry, get
deserve to be
angry.
angry. The main thing that I think is unjustifiable is the terminology is just confusing and not easy to understand. But that might just be a language barrier problem. It could be that they use those words in Icelandic and they make a lot better sense, and the translation is not done great. I don't know. I'm just guessing. I'm spitballing here. All right.
I have one response to that. Item port.
Oh no! You're right! I can't believe it.
Item
can't-
port, Bridger.
Yeah.
See, we're in a glass house, and as long as we accept that,
No.
Those in the
Can't
glass
accept
house should not attach rocks to item ports.
It will forever be a hard point in my parlance. Unless I'm using it ironically. I'm allowed to use bad terminology ironically, I think. All right,
Perfect.
so anyway, let's jump ahead. First quick announcement, feedback at talesofcitizens.com is the place you can send us email. If you think we're talking about Star Citizen too much, not enough, or if you think you've got better topics that we could be talking about, please send us an email. Let us know. Give us any kind of constructive criticism you want, but throwing glass pieces of our poor broken house is not recommended. Okay. New homework, because we're talking about The Lost Generation this episode. The next in-fiction story that we will be talking about will be a human perspective, which is where a human goes to visit the Banu and something very unexpected happens.
speaking of bad terminology, kidding.
Ah. Oh, okay. Banu? Or human? What am I missing?
Just the stories in general. It's a joke. I'm going back to the first one
okay.
we reviewed. Yeah.
I got you. Okay, so let's talk about The Lost Generation. So The Lost Generation is unashamedly a Indiana Jones in space story. It's very clear. There are many homages to that fact, but
I'm still disappointed that the words "you belong in a museum" were never used. However,
yeah, it would have been nice.
Or at least this belongs in a museum. That would have been
so do you.
satisfactory.
Yeah.
Yeah, I mean, let's give credit where credit's due. It's not a perfect copy of Indiana Jones, whereas Indiana Jones is very much like 50% academic, 50% like action hero for all intents and purposes. I would say Tanya is more, without spoilers, I would say that she's more like 30% academic, 70% action hero / hacking guru kind of a thing. Insofar as she likes knowing things for her own sake, but less for the academia, like we need to go and publish this in the world kind of a thing. I get that impression anyway. So she is not a perfect carbon copy of Indiana Jones, but if she was, would it matter? It's still pretty awesome.
No. It's actually best that she's not. That way they can still do the homage, but it's not going to be so over the top that you were disappointed by the story.
Yeah. Okay. So at this point, spoilers ahead. We're going to go through the story and sort of talk about what happened. So if you haven't read the story, you'll still be able to keep up with what's going on, and we'll discuss, what we think from a critical standpoint. Was it an enjoyable story? Was the writing well done? What about the characters, etc.? But we'll also talk about it within the Star Citizen universe. What does this mean for the various aspects of Star Citizen? Be it, can we do these things in game, etc., etc. All right. So let's start with the first chapter. We start by getting introduced to Tanya, but first we start with a little preamble where we find something. That's when he saw it. The sensor clattered to the ground. Cut to next scene. This story loves cliffhangers.
It does, and it's very television scriptish, which is not bad.
It is.
It's a good model to get people interested. Hey, this complete stranger you never see again discovers something. Cue supernatural intro.
Yeah.
Yeah.
Or castle intro, or any procedural, basically.
Cue the Who. That's really what we're.
Yeah. There you go. All right, so we get introduced to this character basically running away. It was a very Indiana Jones moment. Like, she makes a deal with somebody who realizes it's a really, really bad deal because they undervalued something, but she paid them what they offered. And then they're like, wait a minute, that's worth way more. Give it back. And they're like, she's like, no, and runs away. And there's a chase scene where she's like, nope. I like this little interaction here. You've got nowhere to run. And she says, we had a deal, Nagaya. And he said, deals change. And she says, that doesn't even make any sense. Deals can't change. That's what makes them a deal.
Of all of these stories I've read, she's probably the most relatable in there so far. She actually has some personality. She actually, it's like they actually did character development, which was really nice.
Absolutely. And Kid Crimson,
I actually want to hear more about this character when the story's done.
Oh, yeah, absolutely.
And cliffhanger, you might.
Yeah, I hope so. Holy moly.
Cliffhanger, guys, the main character doesn't die a terrible death.
And she doesn't turn out to be a horrible person that you never want to visit anymore anyway. So,
well, I mean, let's not go too far.
Okay, so anyway, she powers up her Beacon 2 is the name of her ship, which is a Freelancer, by the way. Yeah, Freelancer represent. This is made back when there were only 4 ships. So,
sure. Yeah. Well,
there's a 1 in 4 chance of it being my ship.
And the Constellation needed more crew. They couldn't give it to her.
Yeah, they had a Constellation in the last one, Cassandra's Tears, that we did. But, so she gets away, of course. She gets a new job that she's been offered along with some other characters, and they do a really, really good job of showing without telling to introduce these new characters, I thought. It wasn't a bunch of exposition like, oh, she had met such and such on the blah, 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 blah. No, just their interaction clearly tells you who they are in relation to the main character. I loved that about this section.
No, Senzin in this one, he is so Horatio Hornblower-esque villain. Like, not Horatio Hornblower being a villain, but the villains from that story. I mean, it's just, he's a friend, but it's all snide and this background of betrayal. If you don't know what I'm talking about, go and read some very, very old novels. You will enjoy to no end. But it was very well done if the author was going for that particular style of villain, of villainous, traitorous character.
Yeah, he's like a guy that you want to like, except for the fact that he will lie to you and betray you at the drop of a hat. Like, other than that, he's really cool. And you can see that they've worked together in the past. They have a history, but he betrayed her, and now she doesn't trust him anymore, obviously. So they meet because they are fellow explorers, and they have been called by some big syndicate to find out what has happened in this mining site, which, as it turns out, is a piece of the Artemis, which is a very important ship within the Star Citizen universe, because I believe it was like 23 something. The Artemis is a colonization ship that is sent out of Sol. This is before they found jump points within the Star Citizen universe. So it's designed, it's got a bunch of people in cryostasis. It's being run by an AI named Janus, and it's supposed to go to a specific solar system really far away. It's supposed to take like hundreds of years to get there, and then they're supposed to start a colony. It had like 5,000 people on it. It was the first and last colonial mission of that nature, because very shortly after, they found jump points, but then it disappeared. They used the jump points to get to where it was supposed to go. Never found it there. They lost contact with it. Nobody knows what happened. It's one of the biggest mysteries in the Star Citizen universe. And they find a piece of the Artemis here on.
Did we mention it was being flown by an AI?
Yes, that's a really cool piece.
And let's take an aside here. How much would it have sucked to be one of the colonists on the slow ship here, to wake up 5 years later at the right spot, to have it already colonized if there was a planet there that was good for that, and be ready to go?
Yeah.
Like, son of a bitch!
Why did I bother? I was asleep for years. I said goodbye to my whole family. They're all dead now? And you're telling me I just had to wait 5 years and we jumped there?
Get to meet your great grandchildren.
Yeah, that'll do.
Assuming, let's see, what was it they said? 100 years is kind of like the beginning of old age in the Star Citizen universe. So, yeah, about 4 or 5 generations later.
Sure.
Yeah.
All right. So, somebody's saying they can't connect to the YouTube stream without a proxy. That's not supposed to be that way. I can double check the settings later and find out if I accidentally set it to only be available in monetized countries. That's not what I want it set to, but I will have to check that out later. For now, back with the show. So they're basically contacted by this guy, Gavin Arlington, CEO extraordinaire of Shubin Enterprises. And he's the guy who owns the mining platform. He doesn't want a lot of attention. He just wants to keep business going here. So he wants them to find the crash site, determine if it's actually here, and hopefully he can then sort of say, oh, we found it, we've extracted it, now everybody else can go explore it somewhere else because we need to get back to business. I'm losing money on this deal.
Quick sidebar on that. Shubin Mining Company is the same company that has Shubin Mining Station that we will be seeing in Squadron 42.
That's right.
It is. Also, wild speculation, the CEO of Shubin, he owns and flies a Phoenix constellation.
You think?
I think he's why the Phoenix was made.
Oh, okay.
I have no evidence of that, but it's the kind of he needs that kind of luxury.
And you know, I'm going to double check, but there is... Remember when they first contact... Is it the Banu? No, the Xi'an. Like,
Yeah.
There was a mining company that did it when they weren't supposed to. They didn't get all the permissions. Was it Shubin Mining Company? Now I need to go back to the time capsule and look for it. But, so anyway, they learn that... The explorers all learn that this piece of the Artemis is found. It's actually a plate that says Artemis on it. You couldn't be, you know, and they analyze it and it's from the right time period and everything looks correct. But they eventually discover through a lot of various things, and the other guy, Shenzhen here, is being a big dick, just like copying everything that she does and watching what she's doing instead of doing his own thing. He gets all the miners working for him. Like, everybody responds to him for some reason. He's like offered to pay them or something, so they're not helping any of the other explorers.
He's very personable. That and the mind-controlled chip that he uses. No, I'm kidding. Yeah, he basically uses his personality and his charm to get them to do what he's asked them to do. He's kind of the inverse of our protagonist, who is effectively an introverted person, kind of a closet case, doesn't talk much, which leads into the next part.
Yes.
Social engineering. Yes.
Social engineering. He basically realizes that Tanya, our hero, our main character, our heroine, I guess, sort of figures out that this piece has been cut off with a laser. So it wasn't debris that had been ripped off or had been somehow, broken off. It was cut off on purpose, probably as part of a repair mission. So therefore, she realizes the rest of it probably isn't here because she's done a bunch of scans. There's nothing else here. So she immediately goes to tell the main guy, and he just sort of beats her to it. As soon as he realizes that she has had this epiphany, he's like, oh, she's found something. Let me quickly run up to the guy and tell him that we found it together. And so when she goes and tells it to him, he ascribes both of them with the credit, which is great. He's such a sleazebag. So at this point I have to ask, is he a huge dick or the hugest dick? Because damn it, they made him a really, really good hateable character.
Again, right out of classic literature of the adventure dime store novel genre. You know, he's not quite, Conan the Barbarian novels level of villain, but he's up there.
He doesn't have the mustache twisting. That's the one thing this is missing.
No, he's got his megawatt smile.
Yep.
Indeed.
That'll get you a long way. So basically, it again ends with them basically determining that because it was laser cut, it must have stopped here for repairs. The rest of the ship isn't here. It's not wreckage. We're going to go analyze other data now that we have this new point, this knowledge that it was here in the Stanton system at some point. We can compare its original trajectory with the Stanton system and maybe figure out some new place to look. Of course, she doesn't want to have anything to do with him, and she tries to leave. And he's like, come on, we can work together. And she's like, no. And then she finds a bug that he planted on her because she scans herself and finds it like under her collar or something. And what then she goes and starts looking for the next piece here. She has a long time of just like not figuring anything out. Then she remembers a long time ago, the Hartley Museum, which is a museum somewhere on another planet, was putting together an exhibit with all the most comprehensive Artemis, pieces to date that would have the best clues. So she's like going to go and find out whether that was actually true. She finds out that it's true, but the poor old man who owns the place lost all of his precious pieces to the bank because he couldn't pay because nobody came to see his awesome exhibit. But he had everything, including Gray, a piece of the original Janus AI. He had a copy of it, which was very expensive, mind you.
And so they kind of allude to the like Butlerian jihad thing going on, where the AI is not trusted, no one uses them, no one has it. So it makes me wonder why that wasn't just destroyed or locked up somewhere if AIs are considered to be so dangerous.
Yeah.
For those of you who may have missed the Butler and Jihad reference, go read it.
Go
read it now. It's amazing.
Is that a book? Butler in
Yes.
Jihad?
The Butlerian Jihad is
Butlerian Jihad?
Yes, part of the Dune series.
Oh, okay.
But in Dune they reference it a lot. Why AIs aren't used, why the Mentats exist, all that. And Star Citizen has kind of a nod to that. Why humans are in the control systems instead of AI. Why no AI is used anywhere because you can't trust it. But apparently, when they launched the ship piloted by the Janus, the Artemis,
which they needed to make that concession because it was going to travel for hundreds of years. So they needed to have every human in cryostasis, essentially.
Which makes perfect sense. But then now we've got this AI character being introduced, or AI node or core, whatever you want to call it. But it should have been destroyed completely or put away by the military somewhere. It doesn't seem like these are things that are allowed to the public, even remotely.
Yeah, I assume that's why it was so expensive. Somebody probably did something underhanded.
It was probably stolen from a museum or from a military archive or something.
Then this guy's going to display stolen AI in his museum?
He's never shown to be very bright.
Okay, fair enough. I'll give you that.
And to be fair, it's also on Earth. I mean, it is specifically one of the few things we've seen that was right there on Earth.
That's right. It was in Los Angeles or something, wasn't it?
Yep.
They referenced the actual location. I can't remember.
But I get the feeling that being on Earth, being a citizen, being a business person on Earth is going to provide some advantages when dealing with legalities. There was a little eke of corruption in a large part of this story.
True.
London, there we go. And I don't think we necessarily have to worry too much about the AI being a plot hole, as we might see some really unique things happening on Earth.
Fair.
At least until the Vandals sack it.
So,
we can hope. I mean, I intend to lead that charge. The only reason I bring the AI up is that it is so integral to the technology of Star Citizen to have this weak AI, these not so bright systems that require human intervention at all times.
That requires so much manual stuff to be done. I mean, that's done in part for a mechanical reason because, as Chris said, actual future would have supercomputers aiming all your weapons for you. And you probably would just send out bots to do it anyway, drones, rather than have anything else. But so part of that is the Artemis is one of the reasons that AI isn't trusted. Everybody said, well, if the AI did its job right, the Artemis should have made it to its destination. All the contingency was made plans for, blah, blah, blah. So it must have been that the AI went crazy and killed all the people or flushed them out the airlock or what have you. So that was one of the reasons that they have referenced why the history of Star Citizen ignores AIs or doesn't build them for whatever reason. They've obviously had the capability to.
Yeah.
It's not that they necessarily have proof that AI is bad or AI is evil. It's that they're terrified of the fact that the one major failure of AI in the history of this universe made hundreds of people disappear.
Thousands, actually. I think it was 5,000.
Yeah, 5,000 people.
Made thousands of people just disappear into the black. That happening at an early enough phase of Earth's spacefaring development clearly was enough of a shocker to keep people from wanting any situation in which AI was in control. I think it's important to note that they've talked about auto-aiming turrets and things like that, which effectively mean that they're dumbed-down AIs. They're just not conscious AIs.
Ashland just blew my mind. There's a good theory that the Artemis created the Tevarin on its journey. Whoa.
Interesting.
You see,
With the
this is
Mind
one
blown.
reason I am interested
Where
in
is
seeing
this
more
theory?
of this.
I want to hear the supporting evidence for this, or it's just complete speculation. But even as complete speculation, that's pretty awesome.
That is pretty awesome speculation.
Mortimus GG asks when the game is out. Well, technically
Yeah.
it's out right now in early access. It's not really. It's in pre-alpha basically, but
I'm saying 2020. Perfect.
no, come on.
They're claiming that by the end of
2016. It's gonna be 2016.
Yes, they're saying by the end of 2015 we'll have the first chapter, which is a few missions of the first single-player Squadron 42 game,
Yeah,
which is
and
going to be
that
awesome, by the
It's
way.
going to be a completed. That's not an early access. That's just the
Yeah,
first.
that'll
few
be
chapters.
complete. They're actually in the process right now. I just linked you the Shubin mining thing, actually, Bridger,
Yes.
of trying to get that single-player thing set up so we can play it.
Mhm.
Now, the other thing that's worth noting is that by the end of this year, we should see the first alpha of the Persistent Universe.
Yes, that is what they have said. It might only be a couple
Yeah.
of systems. Oh, good. I'm putting a.
That's
Thank you
great
for
ad.
putting
That's
the
just
ad
what we
out there.
wanted to see.
But yeah, they said that it might just be a few systems for the Persistent Universe, but it will be hopefully out by the end of this year, and I expect we'll have the Persistent Universe sort of made more present in
Yes.
by the end of next year for sure.
What we're seeing right now is if they have a good experience with the early part of the Persistent Universe, which is going to be testing jump points that may not necessarily normally connect to certain points, but seeing if they work anyway, testing some of the initial like trade runs, and trying to make sure that piracy has some sort of validity, because you want pirates if you want gameplay to happen.
Mm-hmm.
Even if I want to just kill them, I still want there to be pirates so I can kill them.
There has to be good guys and bad guys. All right.
Exactly.
So, back to the story here. We have Tanya learning that the bank has taken all of the memorabilia that might have clues about the Artemis that she could use, and so she goes into the bank to sort of scope it out and find out how susceptible it would be to her kind of sneaking in and stealing the pieces that she needs. And this has one of my favorite lines. It says, "The bank tellers were very much human, but conditioned to act like robots. It was disconcerting," which is a very good description of bank tellers in many
Yes.
places.
Or cashiers, or engineers, or I'm sorry.
Okay,
go on.
there you go. So she learns that the bank has a lot of high security, but that it owns a storage facility, and she then manages to hack into that and find out, sure enough, the museum, their pieces are being held in a storage facility. So this is where the character growth happens, uses a little social engineering to get access to the storage facility and sneak in and steal some of the stuff. So she
I like
decides
that
to sort of
little
try
social
that.
engineering.
Yeah. She tries that because that's always been her weakness, but Senzen's strength was always social engineering and manipulation, whereas hers was always the academic and historical nature, but now she's trying to take advantage of his set of skills to get what she needs, and she does. She gets out with Janice. So that
And a lot of artifacts.
And a lot of artifacts.
Yeah.
But Janice is the prize. She does get in there, get out with it, and then she hooks it up to an old system which should be able to run it. Like, where did she get a system that's 400 years old? Like, we can't even find anything from the 80s anymore.
It belongs in a museum. She's worked in museums. Therefore, we will take this leap of faith, again a reference to Indiana Jones, cross the invisible bridge, and she found that was totally off the books, literally.
Speaking of cliffhangers, she triple checks all the connections. She puts the power button on the Janus drive, says, "Here we go," presses it, "to be continued." Like, okay, next. This is a page turner, I tell you what. It makes you want to go.
This
into
is
the
why
next
you read it after they complete the series,
Right?
Yes.
rather than wanting to tear your hair out.
I couldn't have imagined reading through this and like waiting even a week between updates. Like, God.
Yeah,
I'll
like
be
the
honest.
Dresden Files or something.
Oh God.
Oh man,
You
yes, that's true. The Dresden Files.
Butcher knows how to cliffhanger you.
He does
Every
know how to
time.
do that.
Every time.
And some of his opening lines are the most amazing lines that they just establish so much in a single sentence at the beginning of the book. You're like, whoa, wait a minute. Back up, buddy. You just went way too far. Anyway, we'll talk
But
about
enough about Jim Butcher. Yeah.
Enough about
yeah.
Jim Butcher.
I'm gonna point out though, had I been reading this week to week instead of all at once, I'd have probably forgotten to read it again after the first couple of weeks.
That's true. So she basically talks to Janice, and this brings me to another one of my favorite quotes. It says, "My base programming indicates that I am meant to pilot an RSI Chariot class transport designated Artemis, yet I cannot connect with designate Artemis's flight controls." She says, "Yeah, well, about that, I am also finding an incompatibility with the surrounding programming language. Janice, what year is it? My timestamp indicates it is 2232.2.1.2, but the current system incompatibility is pretending an update." She says, "The year is 2942. Janice says, "Understood." Janice is quiet for a few moments. "I have missed my launch date."
Yes.
I love it. She just told you you're 800 years in the future, and it's like, I missed my launch date.
What that tells me is they took the guy from the Captain Obvious commercials, put his brain in a jar, extracted the personality, and put that into the AI. That's what I got from that entire exchange.
Must be. So, anyway, she then gets to basically her main plan, which is she says the Artemis went missing. She gives him the whole backstory, and she says, "I want you to run a simulation with the pieces of data that we have. With the Artemis went missing, it never wound up where it was supposed to, and we know it touched down for repairs in the Stanton system and any other kind of variables that ever has been found, right?" And so she does it, and the computer's like, "I can do that. It'll take 10 hours. And then she goes to sleep. And when she goes to sleep, our friends from the first chapter show back up. But before there's this...
Nausea.
Yeah. Is it nausea?
It sounds nauseous, so nausea.
Oh, okay.
I'm going with that. Yeah, I don't think it's right, but I'm going with it.
I said Nagaya in my head, but I never liked it that way. So I'll go with nausea.
You also say gladius, to be fair.
That's what everybody else says. Oh, man. It's like a plug-in for your sheave.
I need my freelancer smelling minty fresh.
So I bring a gladius along.
Especially because it has no guns.
Yeah. Oh yeah, we'll get to that. Okay. Anyway. So the before that though is this cool thing where it replays like the parts of the simulation where the computer starts philosophizing. I thought that was kind of disconcerting. Like, oh, there's step one of a bad plan. Like the computer's starting to recite philosophy and ask philosophical questions. Like, the captain says, like, "I'll take over," and the computer's like, "Captain, perhaps the captain would want to know that my flight and navigation controls have a 0.002% chance for error." It's like, "Excuse me, Captain, are you sure you want to maintain manual control?" And the captain's like, "Yes, I do." It's like, "Are you sure, Captain?" "I'm sure. But, Captain, I have let's show me the sky, I'll get us there." And he's like, and it's just the computer thinking to itself, curious response, "I'll get us there," implies ownership, control. Perhaps there's a value in the possession of a memory? Set reminder during the slow burn in outer space. Is there a difference between an act performed and an act witnessed? Sub-question, why is it important for someone to do something themselves? Like, it's asking all these philosophical questions. It was great. It was just, I loved it. I don't know about you guys. I thought it was great.
It was a very good personification of an artificial character. You know, trying for like an alien mindset. Mm-hmm. If you want a guy who, before he passed away, last year, Ian M. Banks, or Ian M. Banks, was excellent.
It should be Ian. There is no Ian. Doesn't exist.
Says Ian.
Yeah. He was excellent at writing AI characters, and so therefore, yes. And I want to point out, as we go along here, the budding romance between Mortimus GG and our own Gray. In the Twitch chat.
Yeah, I've heard Banks before. I feel like I've read something by him.
I have read everything by him.
The Culture series. I'm
Use
reading
of
something
weapons.
by him right now.
See, there you go.
Okay.
And he does a great job with...
You're absolutely right. He does a fantastic job creating alien characters. Mm-hmm. And this is another example of that kind of thing where any human could understand why that pilot wanted to pilot the thing themselves, but an AI would be like, but logically I am clearly so much more superior in this task. Why would it not let me control that, you know?
The only thing missing was the AI making snarky comments about worthless bags of mostly water.
Yeah, essentially. Question, meatbag. All right.
All right, but
So anyway, there's a lot of cool stuff in there.
I think we have your biggest complaint though. As the pirates grapple with our freelancer hero, she runs away and then can do nothing to them.
Yes, because why does her freelancer have no guns? Come on, it has stock 2 guns on it at least, minimum, plus a turret. She's trying to get away from him. It's like, there's no guns. What do you mean there's no guns?
Does it have the minimum and plus a turret if it's the special hauling variety? Maybe she has to move.
The Max has the guns. Yeah, Max has guns.
Okay. And maybe she sold them.
I'm thinking she must have bought it certified pre-owned or something and didn't come with the guns.
So she went to the used spaceship.
Options.
Yeah, the used spaceship lot. And they had taken the guns off or left the replica weapons on there. Forgot to trade it out for her.
You did just hear a Knights of the Old Republic saying, yes, yes. Observation, meatbag. You have correctly asserted where we are. All right, so then, of course, the pirates try to get the jump on her. It's the same Najia from before. She barely gets away, partly due thanks to Janice taking over the command of her freelancer when she tries to open up a channel to it in order to blast the memory dump. And just completely like, oh, well, if I can't have it and they're going to kill me, I'm not going to let Sen have this. And she opens up a channel between her freelancer and it on the hope of I'm just going to end the memory. And she loses all control of the ship. Janice takes over completely and flies her to safety, doing things with the ship that she would have never thought possible because it can just do it all in an instant.
Which is why you can't trust AI. Yeah.
And that's why you should never.
That's why the AIs are all destroyed, except apparently this one. So it made it.
But then you're worried, and at the end, they don't give you the cliffhanger as much. Because you say, who are you, Tanya Arel? And then it's like, oh, I have a user file for you, Tanya. I am Janice. It's like, oh, good, it recognizes her. Because right now, it's coming out of the simulation before it's complete. So it doesn't necessarily remember what it was originally supposed to do. And now it's like, thinks it's still touched to the... It was scary for a moment there, but it's okay. It's okay. It's okay. All right, so she then sort of talks that it has an idea of where it might have gone from its original thing, and I like this part where it's just barely gotten her out of bad situation, and it manages to. She has a discussion with it. You know, where would you go? Well, if I had sat down here, I would have examined the star charts, and this planet would be the most likely for human habitation. So this is where I would have planned to go according to my simulation. And she's like, "All right, let's go to the Oso system." And then she says, "Hey, Janice, can I fly?" There was a long pause. No. That's it. There's no period. Shit. Oh no. It's becoming controlling.
I think that might... I haven't read the series in years, but Anne McCaffrey had a series where human bodies that were kind of desiccated and wasted were stuck in spaceships to pilot them. It reminds me a lot of a throwback to that, where the humans would have that kind of interaction. Can I fly? No.
Yeah. It's a kind of a HAL 9000 moment. Like, I can't let you do that, Tanya. You're not very good at it. You'll probably crash us.
I don't trust you with my new robot body. Yeah.
Now, in the next section of this chapter, we see another really interesting piece of the Star Citizen history. And that is, they reference Synthworld a little bit, but they also discuss how in the post-Messer UEE, a kinder, gentler empire, they try to protect developing intelligent life, essentially. So the Oso system is one such system where they strictly prohibit anybody from going near Oso 2 because despite the fact that it's a very habitable planet, it has its own indigenous life that is burgeoning on intelligence, and they need to protect it. So there is UEE patrols all over the place, but way less than there used to be, because it's 100 years since this was started, and, you know, budgets get chipped away, that kind of thing. But it was a nice little kind of tweak and insight into the Star Citizen universe and how that history has affected reality. I wonder if there will be some kind of illegal trade that pirates can get in if they can sneak past the UEE and like take special pets off of these planets.
Well, we
the
know
game.
slaves are in, and I myself want my own very special developing species. slave.
Okay. Well then, that didn't get weird at all. Okay.
So I think that for a while the Osoins, which for reference, Oso bear. Okay, so we have the bear species. Thank you. They're a politically hot item for a while. People got really interested in them the same way that Western world communities get really excited about kind of niche issues all the time. It gets really big, a bill is passed, and then 2 years later, everyone's forgotten about it, moved on with their lives.
Right.
And that's what happened here. They poured all the money into it, and then people forgot. And the military has slowly been drawing down, and now only the Society for the Preservation of the Oceans is around,
Right.
and they're the only ones that care anymore, and they're fighting for funding, and they go on to the equivalent of PBS, and they ask for money.
Yeah. Let's see. What did they say? After Synth World, most of those resources began to dry up. Restrictions on travel were loosened, but they still tried to prevent people from going too close to Oso 2. Nowadays, a skeleton crew of ragtag military burnouts maintained the system, whereas before it was like the best and brightest of the UEE. Now she can sneak past in her freelancer, essentially. It's not even like a ghost, it's just a freelancer. Now, I'm curious, because we're seeing a lot of people show up in the chat that have no idea what they're watching. And that's a really interesting thing. I wonder, I'd be curious, how did you get here? Are these people that are just going to YouTube live and seeing, like, what is this? And they're seeing a bunch of people that are watching it? But yes, to answer the question, if anybody, like Gray has been kindly answering for us, this is about a game coming out called Star Citizen. It has a lot of cool stuff. You can kind of play it now. This is kind of what it looks like. But it's going to be a space sim, not entirely unlike a lot of the older games in the Wing Commander days. If you played Wing Commander or other games like Freelancer or TIE Fighter, that kind of genre. But this is going to be a massively multiplayer online one. We got joysticks, or you use your keyboard and mouse to try to hit things. This is me attempting to hit things, not doing a fantastic job of it, really. But you get the idea. So just to bring us back here. But we've got a little bit more to cover. I want to get us done as fast as possible here. So I'm going to try to zoom past, and we'll just stop me if you've got a comment here, guys. I just want to... Go ahead.
I want to stop you for a second. I have a comment. Never have you wanted to get this done quickly. Let's be absolutely clear. We disrespect our fans and their time every single episode, and I love us
That's
for
true.
that. I
That's
think
true.
that's the right way to go about it.
I can't honestly claim that.
And with that, let's start the next hour.
Welcome to hour number 3 of the Star Citizen podcast, Tales of Citizens.
Now, all in Shakespeare voice.
Yeah. No, this is public radio voice. Thank you very much. Please get it right. Public radio voice is here to teach you in a stern manner.
Oh,
how
Bridger,
you
it's a
pronounce
podcast.
things.
You don't want to cause car accidents. Don't put people to sleep.
All right. So, anyway, they arrive at the planet where they think might have information about the Artemis, the human space exploration vessel that went missing hundreds of years ago. So, they need to sneak past the military blockade because there is a developing species on the planet. They sneak in just barely, they scan the whole thing, and she has to make a last-minute decision. Should I try to get out before the next scan comes by, or should I land before the scan can pick me up? And Janice scans and finds something that seems like it might be from the Artemis. So they land, and she runs into a familiar figure. God damn it, Senzen, how did he get here? Grinning, his stupid grin, I want to punch him in the face.
Deus Ex Machina.
That's true.
It's no
Deus
fun
Ex
if he's
tracking
not...
your ship anyway.
Yes. It's no fun if he's not faster than she is.
Yes, you're right. It has to be. Bridger moments? What's a Bridger moment? What does that mean?
It's a hashtag.
Oh,
it's
no.
like hashtag just girl.
You know what?
Hashtag just girl things. Hashtag Bridger moments.
You know what, though?
We'd like to take this as a moment to plug the Legacy Gaming Twitter feed. You may have all of your hashtag Bridger moments.
Yes.
Spoon fed to you
Legacy
every day.
GG, at Legacy GG. Now,
if you
here's
see
the
him
thing.
froth at the mouth. Okay, go ahead.
Yeah, so my nephew-in-law,
Oh
my
no.
wife's nephew, came and I was showing him like Counter-Strike or whatever, and I was looking at my YouTube videos, and he looked at the most recent one and it said, he was reading it, Tales of Citizens #24. I'm like, that's not a hashtag. That's short for number 24. What did... You kids and your music and your... Damn it. Why am I not cool anymore?
Congratulations. You have a lawn to tell people to get off of now.
Yeah.
I
I
used
guess
to know
so.
I used to know what it was, but now I don't know what it is anymore.
No, it
and
was-
so I'm
No,
confused
no,
and
you
angry.
butchered it. It was Grandpa
know.
Simpson, and he
And
said,
and
I used to be with it. Now I don't
There
know
it
what
is.
it is, and I'm confused and angry.
that's what it was. Possibly the best Simpsons line ever.
Ah, yes. Right after alcohol. the cause of and solution to all of life's problems.
problems. Yep.
Ah.
Oh,
Yes.
I love
Okay.
that line.
Anyway, so she meets up with Sen, the rival explorer that has betrayed her in the past, and he basically says, hang on, we're both here. Rather than fight, let's just go see what's going on. Temporary truce, which she can't, like... No, but she does
No.
anyway. She says, sure. Instead of, like, kicking him in
No.
the head, she says, fine. And the...
See, I think there could have been a great opportunity for more character growth here. Not to disrail us again, but she should have pulled the sidearm out, shot him in the head, and kept going. Problem solved.
She's never killed anybody before. She's not... she's
Star
not
sociopath.
Character growth, damn it.
She has to grow into being a murderer. I see.
It makes it dark.
All right.
And then
so,
the AI vents her out through her freelancer with no spacesuit on, and this just all goes downhill.
Yeah. So she is essentially says fine. He says he got here essentially by following. So I don't know how much sense this makes, but the ship was supposed to send signals back to Earth. And they were never captured, but he's like, maybe if it went through really cold space gases, it's
Okay.
still traveling. And,
No.
like, I'll go there and try to pick it up.
No.
And somehow he picks it up and gets the location of this very planet.
They're what the author is attempting to do is, and maybe there's some science behind this, and I don't know it. We really should get Tim to answer this question, but I'm pretty sure he has had a seizure at this point. His brain
No.
read that and collapsed.
This actually does make some sense.
It
To be
makes
perfectly fair, the physics.
pseudoscience sense.
Now, if you actually did have the ability to say we know what direction a transmission is going,
Mm-hmm. No, I'm
Which-
with you there.
is good.
Yeah.
And then you say we've got this thing, this medium that will
Mhm.
slow down the wave speed,
But not absorb it.
not absorb, but slow down the wave
Okay.
speed.
Okay.
Let's just make an assumption that such a deuconium gas does exist.
Super dense, super cryogenic.
Exactly.
Unobtainium. Gotcha.
Yeah.
It's an
Gas
unobtainium
obtainium.
nebula.
Callie, Sid Vicious might be onto you. He says, why are Callie and Tim never on the cam at the same time? I sense a secret identity. Are you secretly an Australian as well?
I'm
An
not
Australian
upside down.
physicist? No.
If you could invert my picture, I could be the Australian.
The underside of his
Someone-
desk, actually, he can't stand up because if he stood up, there are no feet. There's just Tim.
Oh boy.
That didn't do it, but...
that
Matt
the
Bridger has
idea.
broken
Right.
everything. Oh, there we
Now
go.
I've broken everything. All right. So anyway, he explains that he went behind some really dense, cold gas
Sure.
and spent a couple of 2 frozen ships and a lot of computer reconstruction to get the coordinates for this planet. So that's how they wound there at the same time. They find out that the actual piece they're looking for is buried in a cave behind the village that the Osoians have built here. And they're weird. Like, I love the description is like their legs are super big and go all the way up to where their shoulders would be on a human. And they have like 2 sets of arms coming out of their torso. So the torso is like hanging between their shoulders and their legs go down from their arms. It's crazy, but it's a cool visual. Right? And because they're on a planet with really heavy gravity, these things are massive. Like massive shoulders and massive legs to push them through this heavy gravity.
Yes. Which
So-
is a great xenobiology kind of moment there. It was good.
I liked it. And they've got these little color-changing foreheads. Like it changes color to indicate either mood or some kind of communicative...
And I had a comment about that because what the author didn't do but tried to or was going for was the Earth analogs, because a lot of like a cephalopod a cuttlefish actually will use color bands across its skin to communicate. And Arthur C. Clarke did that in the Rama series with the octopus creatures that do that same thing.
Yeah.
Moving on.
So this brings a brand new meaning to the term legs that go all the way up.
That's true.
Yes.
That's true.
So let's move on. So anyway, they sneak into the cave, they sneak past these guys, they find a piece of a port thruster or something like that, and a bunch of pictograms that indicate that that hundreds of years ago the Artemis set down here to do repairs or something, and maybe actually gave these guys fire. Like, it seems to be pictographically depicted that these gods like figures that look like humans in a spacesuit with the word Kenlo, like Engineer Kenlo was the main engineer on the thing, like stopped and bestowed fire upon the Osoians or something to that effect. And then Senzen says, we should get out of here. And she starts to leave, but then she sees something. She goes back to take some more pictures, and when she turns back, Senzen's gone. And the Osoians are just at the entrance of the cave with spears in her face. And she's like, oh, hi. So she tries to be, like, it's this great moment where she pretends to be Kenlo, where she tries to get them to worship her. But there's this one spear-wielding guy who won't take it, like he's still suspicious, but the shaman's like, no, it is the god Kenlo. Like, they don't say that, but it's clear that's what's going on. There's a fight within everybody. And she says, it is I, Kenlo. And she struck the pose that he did, and she's like, behold my glory. I love that. I love that thought. Like, that's totally something that Indiana Jones would do, and then it would fail, and then he'd run back in the cave. And that's exactly what happened. It was great.
Yes. It's well done.
So, needless to say, and for the sake of time, she gets out of there, eventually. Partly because a bunch of UEE personnel show up to arrest her, and she supposes that it was Senzen, after getting to his ship and starting to get off the planet, sent a message and said, hey, there's somebody here. And so they went, and now she's in trouble because she gets captured sneaking into her own ship. After a big fight. I love this, actually. They did have the description of a chase scene where one guy is chasing her, but because the gravity is so heavy here, they were both basically walking. But I just love the idea of a chase scene where both people are going like 2 miles an hour, because that's as fast as they literally can go in the gravity.
Yes.
That was great.
It's the O.J. Simpson-esque high-speed escape.
Right? Right?
Oh, no.
Only 90s kids will get this.
Yeah. So, anyway.
See, that should have been the title of the episode, right there.
Instant There's our subtitle.
I can still change it. What's the feedback email? Mortimus, it is feedback@talesofcitizens.com.
I think Mortimus's feedback will be, which one of you is on the fucking left?
Here, look. Left.
That one.
Center. Ahoy.
No.
Center? Yes? No? Right? Yes.
No.
You you could actually just put, like, gray, right.
Bridger's left, also called right.
It's to my right. It's to my left, but it's to your right from a visual standpoint. Anyway, people on the audio podcast.
There's a little notepad right there under my screen. That's what it's for. You should just write it right there.
People on the audio podcast are like, this is fascinating. I don't get the show.
No.
All right, so anyway, Tanya's captured. She goes into the prison cell of a station in Stanton. This is the Oso system, sorry, in Oso. And she gets the whole thing, you're going to be in jail for 10 years because this is a very serious crime, blah, blah, blah. She goes and places a call to the to Arlington, the main big CEO guy, hoping that he'll help her out if she tells him that she's got some juicy tidbits. But then suddenly the door just opens, and she's like, huh? So she goes out, and the speaker says, hello, Tanya. And she's like, Janice, I apologize for inactivity earlier. I thought it best to keep my presence a secret from the military. So Janice helps her to escape. But this is the greatest part here. She says, they connected the Beacon 2 systems to their network. I'm surprised your people don't use more AI. That's an awful lot of wasted programming. She says, can we talk about this later? He says, of course, I will allocate some time on your schedule. Can you get me out of here? Yes. If you can find a vacuum-sealed room, I have made arrangements to open the airlocks and vent the personnel into space. And she's like, Janice, you shouldn't do that. There was a long pause. I am kidding, Tanya. I don't know about that, Janice.
Yeah.
I don't know about that. Are you really kidding?
When I'm told that I did something bad, I also say I was just kidding.
That's exactly it. Oh, man. Okay, so anyways, suffice it to say, she sneaks through the facility. Janice can see everything on the monitors, tells her when to wait, when to go. It's like a big, hide through Pac-Man thing where you're trying to hide from the ghosts as you walk through the maze of blah, blah, blah. And she gets through and gets back to her ship, and she escapes, and it was all great. And she gets away, but then, boom, people are firing at her as she jumps to the jump point to the Callus system, which I skipped because they did identify using the pictographs that Kenlo pointed to a big red star, and they determined that was either a dying star or a birthing star, and the newest star system nearby was Callus, and it was a big red star, so they decided to go there.
And I think that the way they got dying or red or whatever from that is some kind of interpretive dance.
Yes, must have been it. So she gets to Callus and is immediately set upon by Nagia, and her whole ship is immediately torn to pieces and blown up, and she gets out just in time, essentially. And Nagia pulls her into his ship, which I got the impression was probably a Cutlass. I don't think they actually say, though. It sounded like it was
ever
a
said on
Cutlass.
that one.
But anyway, she's put into the ship and brought to see Senzen, who is on, like, the furthest planet. Like, this is Callus 9. And he's decided, you know what? This is an unstable planet with tons of ice. Let's just shoot an orbital laser into it for many, many rounds, hoping that we find something. Apparently that is what they decided to do, because Senzen used all the resources that Arlington would give him to get a big mining crew here. And so they set down on this planet that is apparently the farthest planet from this new sun, but it has weather and water and snow and ice and cryovolcanoes. If Tim hadn't already had his head explode.
He may not have, actually. We talked about this
Ammonia.
earlier, but there are cryovolcanoes in our solar system.
Yeah.
They are basically super pressurized. Was it methane or water on one of
Really?
Saturn's moons?
Titan.
Titan, thank you.
Yep. Titan actually has frozen volcano things.
Yep. Now, so they're very low temperature volcanoes. So there is actually a cryovolcano. This does not mean that, in the first chapter referencing obsidian as lava was a good call, but separate issue. Moving on.
Indeed.
Clearly, they need a staff geologist just to handle these questions for their fiction.
Right, yeah, well, okay, that'll be the stretch goal for 79 million. Staff geologist.
I mean, I've got these blinds that are breaking people's immersions in chat. Just think about what happens when they read lava. It's all over. It's done.
Yeah. So anyway, they take her to see Senzen. He's trying to decide if he should kill her or if she could maybe be of use to him somehow. And the guy, Nagia's like, hey, you said I could kill her. I said killing her was negotiable. Let me think. And then he's like, I got nothing. She's all yours. Like, despite saving her for a second, he's like, no, I just wanted to tell you that it was still my decision. She essentially gets away by diving into the hole that this big giant orbital laser has cut. There's some gravity anti-grav sleds going down it to pull out debris and stuff, and so she jumps down and lands on one of those and sneaks down and is going to attempt to get away that way, but they're chasing her, but she has grabbed the map that he has mapped out of the underground tunnels here, so she's navigating through with that, but he's chasing her, and they find their way to a chamber where he finally catches her, but then they see something, and it's never explained exactly what they see. I mean, they describe it, but we don't know precisely what it is, because some weird shit happens here, guys. Some weird shit happens. Let me see. It was, here it is, quote, "It was a body, fixed in the ice, mid-motion. Bathed in the reflected laser light, it looked surreal. Whatever it was, it looked like it was flash frozen. Maybe caught in one of the cryovolcano eruptions. But whatever the situation, from its posture and closed eyes, it looked like it was waiting, expecting." And then they go on to describe it as a human. Anatomically, it says human or human-ish. There was a head, 2 arms, 2 legs. The skin was a light gray. A dark, almost black network of lines ran under the skin. They almost look like paths of circuitry running in tandem with the nervous system. They could have been tattoos. Tanya didn't know. She had no idea what she was looking at. And then they look at the clothes, and you can see it says Kenlo, which again is the name of the primary engineer on the on the Artemis. Suddenly, there's a big, massive eruption, and everything's collapsing, and they have to get out of there, and Senzen's there like, "No, I can almost reach it." And she's like, "You have to let it go, dude." And he's like, "I'm almost there," and then falls into the crack.
And then he crosses the seal, and everything collapses, and a man with a beard stands in the background, staring quietly.
Yes.
Yeah, straight out Indy.
This is exactly
Actually,
the same.
no. The AI actually like glows at them or something.
Yeah, that's
it attempts
really
to
weird,
communicate,
right?
which is a little
the
creepy.
The AI takes on the form of Indy's father and tells her to run when she wants to stay, despite what just happened to Senzen. He fell down this fissure that opened up while he was trying to reach this. Then she's like, "But it's the find of a century. But my life, but it's the find of a century." And then all of a sudden, she realizes that Kenlo was looking at her. His eyes, a pale shade of blue, were focused directly on her. He looked surprised, amazed, the same way she must have looked when she first saw him. His lips weakly formed a single word: run. His eyes closed, the body settled. Leaving him behind, Tanya ran. What the hell just happened? Was that actually a dude that was frozen and just woke up and died?
I'm going with it was the first Banu Android program.
We'll learn about the second and third ones next time.
Well, we have a story coming up. I think we're actually going to go over some Banu androids. So yeah, the Banu caught the Artemis, vivisected all of the dead or frozen colonists on there, and created a android that got lost on this planet. I'm kind of here, folks.
All right. So basically, that's it. She gets away just barely. Sensen dies a horrible, painful death because he stayed too long and was tempted, and she was tempted also, despite her own argument that they should leave, just like Indiana Jones. But she gets away. She goes back, and the poor old gentleman, Mr. Hartley, that she met at the museum that had all of his, the museum was going to close down because they couldn't get anything. She manages to have Arlington give him the new piece of the Artemis, and it saves his museum, and he's able to pay the bank, and blah, 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 blah.
Because it's way more interesting than a microchip that says this might contain an AI that's too dangerous for us to display on a computer.
And then it ends with a sort of epilogue of her in the Beacon 3, recovering pieces from the Beacon 2, and piecing Janice back into her system, and basically saying, "Do you have a course in mind?" And she says, "Sure do. Understood," Janice said. The system started to activate, then paused. "Would you like to fly?" Tanya thought for a moment. "No, you go ahead." She actually decided. So that was interesting character growth. The AI decided to let her fly, and she decided to let the AI fly. Aww.
It's a partnership, like any good marriage.
Exactly.
And this actually should dovetail into, and this is out of Futurama for those of you that have watched that show, the robosexual agenda in the next story.
Oh, boy. Yeah, that's going to go there quick.
Oh boy, here it goes.
Hey, I referenced where I got that from, Futurama. If you have a problem with that, take it up with Fox.
So
they have more lawyers than I do.
That's how it ends. They never find the Artemis. They never explain exactly what the deal was with Kenlo, and I was so mad. I want the next piece, but all will be forgiven, CIG, if there is some major find that the explorers will find when the game goes live, and it is a sort of essentially a breadcrumb or a scavenger hunt where one clue leads to the other, and somebody actually finds the Artemis. And we learn what happens to the Artemis within the Star Citizen game. They don't tell anybody. They just put it in there as part of a thing that you can explore. And if you know the backstory of the Artemis and you use this first clue, it'll lead you to another clue, it'll lead you to another clue, and it happens organically, and somebody is the first one to find it. I would love to see that happen, unless, of course, they don't have YouTube, and then it's all gone and nobody
They're
gets to
letting
see
you
it.
name systems, potentially.
Right.
Or at least jump points or something like that. I can see them making this like one of the big explorer carrot on a stick things, because people are going to find the clue, and then other people are going to pay for that info or find the clue, or you name it, and it's just going to go.
And now, because you, my good fellow podcast listener / viewers, have read this backstory, you now have what it takes. You will recognize the clue when you find it. Tons of other people who never read this backstory, they'll be like, Artemis, whatever, and they'll keep going. But you, my dear friend, will know.
You may well have a system named after you. Or
Very
at the
well.
very least, you might have your freelancer pancake into the side of a UE carrier that's defending that system. We'll see what
One of
happens.
those.
If Bridger is flying, I'm going with the latter.
But anyway, if you guys really like these lore pieces that we've done, if you really like the backstory of Star Citizen, might I recommend my own humble production called Alpha Boot Camp, specifically the 3 episodes entitled The Lore of Star Citizen. I tried to put them together in a bit of a historical context. This is a lecture as if in the universe. From
Remember,
the year.
this is a companion
Oh, well,
to
here we
the
go.
Tales of Citizens podcast.
There's me.
If you'd like to hear us discuss the ramifications of the
Yo, dog.
design outlined
I
in
heard
this
you like
episode,
Bridger.
head over to Tales
So
of
now you
Citizens.
have some Bridger.
So we got Bridger in your Bridger.
29
Yo, dog.
and bring it back to you here today.
So this is I basically set this up as a lecture being told in the year 2944 about the last 1,000 years of history within the UEE.
Let's listen in as Professor John Smith gives us a broad overview of the history of the United Empire of Earth.
Not sure if generic or Mormon.
Hello, everyone. Is this is on? You can hear me? Okay. Welcome one, welcome all, welcome to HIS 103, the history of the third millennium. I am Professor John Smith X. Thank you for joining us. And
See, the clue there is it's John Smith the 10th, which is my favorite Doctor. That would be the 10th Doctor. He always goes by John Smith in Doctor Who. So anyway, it goes on and discusses
7cc, which was believed at the
It does
time
go on.
to be a possible habitable super Earth.
Oh,
What
here we are.
happened after it left the solar system?
Hang
His
on.
job was to.
Speaking
Now,
of
many you
relevance,
already know the story
Oh,
of the
no.
Artemis. The
Yes.
first colony ship, designed
Look
to
at
travel
that.
at
Well done.
sunlight speeds
Well done.
for centuries, carrying 5,000 humans in stasis chambers. The ship was controlled by an AI named Janus. His job was to fly the ship to GJ667cc, which was believed at the time to be a possible habitable super Earth. What happened
Shouldn't it be her
after it
job?
left the solar system in 2232 is a mystery to this very day. Contact was lost with the ship, and it was never heard from again. There was a recent discovery which suggests that the ship somehow wound up in the Stanton system.
that
and
is
stopped
which
to make
we are
repairs.
referring to, of
But
course,
no
the
one-
Tanya Urel story. But if you would like to hear that and more, I highly recommend it. Or you could, of course, go and read through all of the time capsule information on the Robert Space Industries. But I think that I'm very proud of how this came out. It's really cool. Definitely check it out if you haven't seen it before. It's on my channel under Alpha Boot Camp, Lore of Star Citizen, Part 1, 2, and 3. I'll link them in the show notes if you want to check them out. But we are... Wow, this is, I think, our longest show ever, guys. We're coming up on 2
We are.
hours.
It's impressive.
We're working on it.
And we've got one
we
more
are
to talk
working on
about
This-
here.
This
Damn it,
was
what-
the
what-
best of the best of the stories, guys. Dead
It really-
serious.
it is
This
the
was
really good one.
really, really good, and it is worth a read.
Yep. It has been my favorite. Now, there's a couple that I haven't read yet, so I can't say it's my favorite of all of them, but it's the favorite of the ones that I have read. So far, I have read Kid Crimson. We already did that. Cassandra's Tears. We did that the last one. This is the Tanya Rell story, the Lost Generation. Then the next one is A Human Perspective. That one I have also read, and I also enjoyed that for what it is. And then there are at least 3 or 4 after that I haven't read, but I'm going to be very excited to read those and discuss them. So we have one more piece to get to here, guys. And that is our concern of the week. Cockpit glare!
No.
And as you can see in this, cockpit glare can sometimes be a huge problem. Though, of course, what you're seeing here was a much more buggy version than what most people are seeing. However, this is a very easy one. It's because I wanted to bring this up because there are such things as concerns that are legitimate, right?
Yes, most of them, in fact,
Yes.
are legitimate. To some
We
level.
bring up a lot of things on here that are just because we like to tear them apart, because some of them are just ridiculous, so we ridicule them. That's the
It's
point.
our clickbait.
Yes, it is. But this one is very real. Somebody said, okay, this is a huge problem. I mean, look at this is the example that he's giving, is suddenly you turn one way and your glass goes completely white and you lose your target and it sucks.
I've been able to actually reproduce this one as well. It's not that glare itself is a problem. At least in my opinion, I believe the person who was arguing said that glare shouldn't exist at all, and I disagree with them respectfully about that. But the whole window going white, that might be a little extreme from the gameplay perspective.
But this concern worked out as the legitimate concerns are supposed to. A CIG representative said these are indeed in our database reported as bugs. We are bugging these issues on a per ship basis instead of lumping them all together, so each ship gets the attention it deserves, which means that each ship will get fixed one by one, essentially. But we don't have any ETAs on when this is going to get fixed, etc., etc. So if your concern is a bug, then it will most likely to get fixed. The problem is most people are concerned about things that we have no idea if they're bugs or done on purpose yet, and they go nuts over these things.
I think this is a great example of that, actually, because the person wasn't sure if it was a bug or if it was on purpose and just poor gameplay.
Yeah.
And CIG outright came out and said, this is a bug.
Yeah.
This is not intended to be this glary. And I'm glad to see that they responded, at least relatively quickly, with, we're looking into this. Even if the whole thing continued to spiral for dozens of pages, because that's what these things do.
Yeah.
I'm glad that CIG at least came in and said, hey, let's tell these guys this is something we're working on. We're looking into it. We do intend to have glare, but not like this.
Yeah, in fact, that's the whole purpose of the Concern Forum, so that when people think they've found something wrong with the game, CIG can come out and say, no, you've just found something unfinished. Again, like 90% of the game is unfinished, okay? I can't imagine anything except maybe the textures on the ships and the ship models might be close to 100% by this point of some of the ships. Like the Hornet's probably close to its final state because that's the first ship they were working on. Most of the other ships are going to probably change tiny bits here and there, but that's the only thing I can think of.
I do want to see that player-piloted scythe sooner rather than later here.
Yeah.
Yes. Now, this is an interesting point, not to go off too much longer here, but there has been some discussion about how they're actually going to handle the subscriber rentals that were promised.
Mm-hmm.
People who were subscribing as the lower level, I think it's Centurion, was it? And then Imperator was the big one.
Yeah.
Centurion was promised, a Super Hornet?
For rental?
For rental. It was like 24 hours and a Super Hornet every month or something like that.
Okay.
Well, I thought it was you got to pick the
a
ship.
week.
You had one token. And you
It
had
was
to
a
pick the
token,
ship.
wasn't
Yeah.
it? But it included the Super Hornet specifically.
Yes.
I believe that was in there.
At
And
the time,
then
that was the big one.
the Imperator got 24 hours with a scythe. That was specifically, they got 24 hours with the scythe. And it looks like the way CIG has implemented this is to give out rec to these accounts and then give you equivalent to what it would take to rent these things.
Right.
And then unlock what you are allowed to rent on a per account unlock basis or per account type unlock
So
basis.
everybody's going to get access to most things, but Centurions are the only ones that are going to get access to Super Hornets and Imperators.
What's
are
worth
the only
noting
ones.
what's worth noting is that as a regular player, if you are not a subscriber, your rental is limited by what is available to other players to currently buy.
Oh, interesting. So
So
when they
if
have a
it's a
sale
limited
for a
ship-
ship that's limited, that's when you can rent it, I guess, to try it out?
Apparently.
Okay.
At least this is what I'm gathering from the forums at this point.
Okay.
I haven't found anything to prove this being incorrect yet. At
Oh,
the same
man.
time, you do get the ability to actually see the scythe for the 24-hour thing, which is interesting. The scythe being a 24-hour rental that's done via rec, that's something. I think it's nice of them to incorporate that into the current system and actually make it something that's consistent and workable, and they can pick when they want to rent it, rather than it being, how shall we say, a little more counterintuitive to unlock. But
Yeah.
we'll see how it turns out. I'm curious to see how people respond to that scythe in combat. I'm wondering if it's going to be super overpowered, or if it's going to be, hey, look, I'm playing Vandal Swarm, you're going to die so fast.
Dime Store is 2 years Centurion subscriber. You know what, Dime Store?
Damn, man.
You the real MVP.
I guess I shouldn't say I just re-upped my 2-year. Okay, fine.
Oh,
Callie.
my hat is quite literally off.
You also have like a gajillion ships. I don't feel bad for you. I don't feel
You
bad for
shouldn't.
you at all.
You shouldn't. I
Didn't you just buy a Vanguard?
traded into a Vanguard.
Oh, okay. Well, at least there's
Yeah.
that. I'm still
I turned
sitting
in my
here.
old ship to get the Vanguard.
Everybody else is out flying around in Vanguards, and I'm just sitting here with my freelancer Miz.
I look forward to seeing that ship.
I definitely want to see how it goes, because I'm sure it's going to be super OP. When it first comes out, I'm going to glory in those moments.
I don't know how, but I went through all 15 swarms of the Vandal in 26 seconds.
Pretty much.
Who knew?
All right, so with that, we are going to call it a night, because, wow, we have been going for far too long here, ladies and gentlemen.
yes.
But again, thank you for joining us, even for those of you that have no idea what Star Citizen is and you just stumbled into our show. Thank you for joining us. And if you want to check out more stories like this, go to the Spectrum Dispatch section of the Star Citizen website up on the top under Comlink. There's a whole bunch of stories. We also have done plenty of other shows about this in the past. And our next one will be on the story A Human Perspective. If you have any feedback, please send us feedback at talesofcitizens.com. And join us in 2 weeks, which is the 19th of April. We will be here again recording on Twitch and on YouTube. Subscribe to the YouTube channel, subscribe to the Twitch channel, which is Bridger15, and you'll see more things. Like me flailing in Europa Universalis to try and hold on to my lead against Spain and the Ottomans and the Empire, etc.
You
I'm
too
gonna
can
say-
watch Bridger flail wildly against the Ottoman Empire and
Yeah.
mock
And-
him in chat.
and
It's
not
wonderful
just-
background music.
and not just flail wildly against the rest of us out here.
Yes. Goddamn Iron Man mode. All right. With that, have a good night, everybody. I'm Bridger signing off.
Thanks, everybody.
All right. Show is over. Now we're in post-show.
So, how about that hashtag Bridger moments?
I don't understand what
All
that's
the time.
talking about.
I
Well,
don't think it has to be specific.
doesn't-
I
I'm
think
gonna
we
say-
can start using it.
Listen, they came up with a very special term just for me. In Left 4 Dead, when your teammates are surrounded by zombies, so you throw a Molotov cocktail on them in order to save them, that's
As you
called
do.
pulling a Bridger. And it works at least 9% of the time.
It works for a given value of works, or to make it a Sex Panther joke, 60% of the time it works every time.
Yeah, exactly. Which is to say, at least you didn't die being eaten by zombies. You died burning to death instead. Isn't that better?
As one would expect. I mean, you didn't come back as a zombie, really. That's
right? Yeah,
you're
I was
doing everybody a
helping.
favor.
I was helping.
Yeah, you formed a pyre to your enemies, and then somehow respawned at the next save point.
Sid Vicious
perfect.
says great Aussie accent, by the way, to Cali Thulu. For those of you not in on the joke, Tim Young is our astrophysicist from California. Damn it! Oh no! I gave it away! No, from Australia.
You fool!
And,
You hit your
joins
desk
us.
so hard your camera went flying.
FSA, it bumped right up there.
Yeah, Joycey,
okay.
post-show. The next hour in post-show
Sid-
of Star Citizen.
Sid was also enjoying the Calathulu Adonis belt, apparently. So
Do I look 15 years old to you? Do I sound 15 years old?
you
No.
sound like you're in your 40s, but you do look 17.
Oh,
Yeah.
well, I guess that's good. I don't know.
You can ask your wife. She can answer that question for you.
Yeah.
Perhaps brutally, but she can answer it.
I do have a baby face. I don't know if
Yeah,
that's a
now-
good thing or a bad thing.
I do like how Mortimus could not tell who was left and who was right. That was pretty impressive. We managed to get Bridger's left being maybe left or maybe right into a thing. That's
Yeah.
a Bridger moment.
Well, okay. You know what else was a Bridger moment? Getting mentioned in Wired magazine. They didn't quote you guys.
Pulling a Bridger is
Hashtag
canceling your
Bridger moment.
podcast due to snow.
Well, God, that happened though. I
Oh
had
man.
to. I literally couldn't get home.
I
had to
remember
go
getting
to
that
work,
message.
and then I couldn't get home. Actually, I had to go to work before it was snowing because I
Yeah.
had to get into work in order to stay overnight because I would not have been able to get into work the next day. Blizzard. Hashtag Blizzard. How about that?
Hashtag we don't live on the East Coast for a reason.
Oh, you
Yeah.
guys don't even know what snow looks like.
No, to be fair, I do.
Yeah, I saw snow once this year. I went skiing. I went up to the mountains. It was
Oh,
a
and-
2-hour drive up there.
I made a 6-hour drive to see snow about 5 years ago. It was great. And then
Joycey,
came
I
home.
am exactly 30 and like 7 months. So it's good. I look a little bit younger than I actually am. So, you know what that reminds me of? The whole conversation about snow on the East Coast and the West Coast are like, what's the problem? There's a podcast called Hello Internet. It features the guy from Numberphile known as Brady Heron, as well as CGP Grey, which did the video that I was telling about earlier, the one about the memes and such. And they are basically the style of two dudes talking. They kind of pick subjects and they talk about them, and they have a great chemistry, specifically because Grey is super rational. And just like they have an
Nice.
ongoing joke that he's like the robot and Brady is the caveman, and Brady will always like have these like sort of philosophical like moments where he's like, so I was in the bakery the other day and it just made me think like blah 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 blah, right? So he had this one moment like he lives in England. He's from Australia, living in England. He went to Berkeley, California, to interview a professor for one of his videos, for one of his mathematical videos, and he's there and he's watching the news when that plane skidded off the runway in New York City, or is it Newark? One of those two at the runway. I think it was JFK or whatever. Anyway. He goes on this like 2.5-3 minute sort of just philosophical musing, like, and I thought at the moment I just kind of looked outside and it was so beautiful and I was like, I can't believe like they have blizzards over there that are so bad planes are skidding off the runway and it's just so beautiful here, and that dichotomy really struck me. And he talks about this for 3 minutes and then Gray just kind of sits there and sighs and goes, so what you're saying is when you have a country that scales the size of a continent, the weather is different on one side than it is on the other. And Brady's like, well, I guess if you wanted to sum it up in one sentence, yes. I was like, that is like a crystal moment of why I listen to that podcast. It's great. It's so hilarious. They have great chemistry because they're so completely different. I love it. I love it.
It's the odd couple of
Definitely
podcasters.
recommend that podcast. Highly recommend. It's called Hello Internet. I cannot recommend it enough. I love it. And it's partly because Gray spends over 10 hours editing that podcast. You know how many hours I spend editing? Zero. I
yeah.
chop off the beginning and the end, and I give this to you. It's called live to tape.
That's why I think we catch it in post should be the running joke around here.
That's what it is, exactly. We'll catch it in the post. They actually do say that all the time on there, but they obviously didn't
leave it in, yeah.
because they left it in. They determined it was funny enough to leave in after the fact. All right, it's 9:06, and we have to have a legacy meeting for the Star Citizen chapter. If you're interested in joining the Team Legacy Star Citizen chapter or any of our gaming chapters, or you just want to come hang out with us, you can do that too. Do we still have the Legacy TeamSpeak info available?
I believe it works for LegacyGG.com right now. Let me try it. Hold on.
We've been having domain name issues that we're trying to resolve here, unfortunately.
So while they look for it, if you are interested in hanging out with the sexy crew, unrepentantgaming.com. We are the Pants Off Party Off. Or Pants Off Party On. Let's try that again. Group. And you can hop over there, put an application in. The TeamSpeak or Mumble, or whatever the hell we use these days, it is Mumble, is available to just go ahead and download, install, and chat with us. And if we don't like you, we kick you out. If we do like you, we keep you. That's how that works.
It looks like our server's still DNS propagating, so the only way
I
people
managed
can
to
really
connect to
connect is
LegacyGG.com. It looks like it also might work with TeamLegacy.net, either one of those. But you can pop into the tavern there. It won't let you go anywhere, but you can poke somebody that has a sword next to their name and ask for permission. Say that you want to come hang out with us and play Star Citizen or League of Legends or whatever. If you find Gray or I on there, it's a long thing. You can find them. Hit Control F. I found that feature recently. You can hit Control F in TeamSpeak and find people that way. That's great. When you have a TeamSpeak that has as many channels and as many people in it as we do, Control F helps a lot.
Yes.
Now, you know what? I mean, everybody's been talking about Homeworld Remastered, right? There's another Homeworld game coming out.
I heard about that.
What was it called? Wreckage? Wreck something?
I'm not entirely sure.
Gearbox lends Homeworld IP to spiritual successor. It used to be called Impact Shipbreakers. It used to be called Hardware Shipbreakers. Now I think it's going to be called Homeworld Shipbreakers. And that's going to be an RTS that's not a space RTS, but a ground-based RTS. And they are now going to put it in the Homeworld universe. I haven't heard anything about it in a long time, though. This was way back in 2013 that the IP was given to them, and I haven't heard anything of it in a long time. Interesting.
Yeah. Vin in Twitch chat posted the Legacy Gaming just IP Connect. That'll actually work for a server instead of trying to type something else.
So
in.
anyway, we're going to go have our Star Citizen chapter meeting for our dudes, and we will see you guys later. Thanks for hanging out with us, and subscribe to the Twitch if you want to see me flail against AI and find new and exciting ways to hate random European countries for no apparent reason in Europa Universalis.
Damn it, Belgium!
The Austrians
Belgium
every time,
has
man.
never yet made me angry. Because
Why
they
were the
almost
Austrians
never exist.
allied with France? Why did they do it?
Why did they do it? It's a good question. Anyway, have a good night, everybody.